question, what should we have for tea?
Hello. Welcome to my cake kitchen. I'm Gladys, and over here we make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate baking and decorating easily. Oh God, bear with me. Tapita. Hello, everybody. Well, it's Tapita and I. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a little over 2 p.m. UK time. Great to have you back. And yeah, I told you when we were about to start the ganache class, the promise was that we were going to cover every little thing I can think of concerning ganache. And so on that note, I think ganache is going to be ruining Christmas a little bit for us, because in between our Christmas celebration and everything else we are doing about Christmas, there will be ganache everywhere. And every time you check on the channel, there will be a subject of ganache. So if you don't like ganache, here it's a polite notice to say you can exit the chat and leave us be, and then you can check back in some other day, and then hopefully you have what you want. But we are still on the subject of ganache. Today we are going to be covering the subject of ganache ratios. Now, for context, there are so many types of ganache on the market. There are different types of ganache, consistencies and textures and uses in the cake decorating process. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we are focusing solely on white chocolate ganache for covering cakes. Naturally, the ratio of white chocolate for covering cakes exists on a ratio of 2:1 or 3:1, which is the most recommended. So after setting the intention, I went off on a break and I come back and suddenly we have Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. What's happening here? Something is happening. Okay, right. I have fixed what is happening. I was just saying, you know what, nothing related to this subject, but I went on a slight break. I came back and suddenly we have Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. What a mouthful of a name. I think we could have just stuck to Prince Andrew, because that would have been easy, but that's a detour. Let's not get into the weeds of that subject. Let's stick with ganache. Before we get into the subject of ganache ratios, I'm going to tell you a simple story about ganache over here that will remain a theme, or from which we will derive the principles for the subject of ganache ratios here. Once upon a time, a very lovely baker yearned for something away from her usual buttercream. And that's because as much as she loved buttercream was slightly disappointing every time the sun came up. When she researched into the options of buttercream that could compete against the heat of the sun, she found out very quickly, even though there were options on the market for her, some were very technical, some required different efforts and skills that she completely lacked. She sat in her kitchen, wondering and yearning for a day where she could miraculously get something that would yield simply and would stand the competition against buttercream, but even better, would yield well even when the heat of the sun rose. There she moaned and groaned and said a prayer. And just like that, a fairy showed up in her kitchen. Into her kitchen were 4 bowls with a simple note that said ganache for cakes. And each bowl had a label: soft, medium, firm, and strongly firm or really firm. Not knowing what to do, she wondered, she and she and in confusion, she wondered which she would choose. Very quickly, she found out, oh, the 4 bowls that had been left in the corner of her kitchen by a fairy could talk for themselves. So as she hummed and in confusion wasn't sure which one to go for, Soft went, pick me, pick me, pick me. She picked Soft bowl. Whatever ganache was in there, she stirred it. She knew the consistency wasn't going to do what she wanted, but she thought since she had received a miracle, she will try nonetheless. So she poured Soft over her cake, attempting to cover. It all seemed like the crevices and corners and places were all being covered on top of the cake, yet it lacked structure. It ran very liquidy, and even worse, as the sun began to come up, it disappeared into the cake. And there she was. Oh, this wouldn't work. So medium firm went, haha. He hastened very quickly and disappeared, didn't he? Maybe you should try me. So medium firm, the baker had tried covering the cake. It held a little bit better than Soft, but still lacked something she wasn't so sure of. It seemed like it was all going okay during the covering process, but when the sun came up, it began to give away. And then suddenly, medium firm began to collapse gradually as her kitchen warmed up and the sun went up. Suddenly she looked and there was firm, but there was also strongly firm. So she thought, I might as well go for strongly firm. But firm was like, I will do the job. I will do the job. I will do the job. She went for firm, and firm held on together. The sun came up. Firm still kept going. A couple of hours in, cracks began to appear on her cake. And then she realized that, oh, it has worked. I found something that will sustain better than buttercream and even sustain better under the sunshine for a little while. But how can I try and stretch it a little longer? Suddenly, the only option she had left was strongly firm. So she went for that ganache option, covered her cake. She realized that it held strongly firm, but occasionally she had texture. Working with the ganache was harder, but the sun came up and strongly firm held together for a little while, long enough for the cake to be served. But she thought the leftover ganache that had been left from strongly firm could be used for other things. So she found other uses for it, and not only did she find out that she got the result she wanted, it came with a slight bit of difficulty. But eventually she realized that there was an option on the market that could compete with buttercream. And there she made a decision about what ganache to go for. Generally, she settled for firm. But when the sun was too warm, she adjusted her skill and she went for strongly firm. From this story, the principles of ganache ratios exist. That if we go for a ratio of 1:1, you will have a soft consistency. If you go for the ratio of 2:1, you will have a slightly firm consistency. If you go for the ratio of 3:1, you would have a firm consistency that will do the job. And of course, if you go for 4:1, you will have really, really firm. All of that depending on your desires, your objectives in the decorating process. Whilst they may not all do the same thing, they are useful for the decorating process. So on that note, we are starting the subject of ganache ratios, what the 1:1 option means, as in the 1:1 of ganache ratio, to the 4:1. In between, there's 2:1, and there is obviously the mostly recommended 3:1. So if you're just joining us here, we're talking white chocolate ganache recipe for covering cakes. I have created previous videos where I talked you through how to make ganache using fresh cream and Elmily, which is what I most prefer for using, but I have covered the details of all of that in part 1 of this tutorial. And then in part 2 of the same tutorial with the same running theme, we made the white chocolate ganache, same principles, same method, except the ingredients were different. This time we were using double cream and we were using a locally based Aldi own brand kind of chocolate. The reason why I have covered the same tutorial in 2 different forms is that because of the difficulty of ganache in terms of its yield and confusion about the various types of ganache on the market, I thought no information is going to go no information is going to be useless on this effect, on this purpose of the tutorial. So I am covering everything, the way I make ganache, the intention behind the use of my ganache, and then bringing that to you so that when you land on the playlist of ganache, you will understand what option and decision you want to make. I keep having to clarify my intention that there are so many types of ganache. We'll come down to defining what ganache really is, why there are different types, and how that plays into the ratio and consistency of ganache. So if you're just joining in, maybe pick up your notepads, take some notes. If you're not into cake decorating, you can still stick with that. Hopefully some other time when you join us, we'll be having a little more fun. But the tutorials that are set in class format are just more informative so that you are able to glean the information that you need for use in your own time. Who is here? I can see a few of you. Right. I have the microphone line in my belly. I can see a few of you in the chat. There is Tapita. If you're new to the channel, hello there. If you're talking to me and it seems like I'm distracted, I'm not ignoring you at all. It's because the subject just has to be covered in a very detailed manner, and so I can't do both. If I'm interacting with you, I can't focus on the information I want to deliver here. So I am just going to say to you, please bear with me. Let's get through the tutorial. The ganache ratios based on the story I have just told you is very simple to understand, and I came up with the story to kind of to try and make it more meaningful and understanding and relatable for you, just so that when you go to make your ganache, you'll understand what is what. So I hope that is of some use to you. In the meantime, there is Pearl. Pearl is in the chat. Tapita, do me a favor. Get rid of Sujan out there for me, quick. Just, I can't seem to do it here. Yeah. Tapita. Okay. Yeah, I got rid of them. Yeah, that's fine. We are not going to entertain any rude comments in the comment section. So yeah, thank you for that. Right. Ganache ratios. Who caught the story here? Wait. Let's see. Right. Whilst we're at it, here's a very polite request that if you're in the chat and you are enjoying the tutorial or you are deriving any form of value from the tutorial, please do consider liking the video or join the community here and add to our numbers. We'll love you here. We are a happy bunch. That is the only time I will make a simple request out of you. So now let's talk about ganache. In previous tutorials, we have covered the subject of ganache, that at the core of ganache is a mixture of cream and chocolate. The chocolate can be dark, milk, and white chocolate. For the purposes of this tutorial, we are sticking with white chocolate. And the white chocolate is, and the subject of white chocolate here is simple white chocolate ganache for covering cakes. I make this distinction simply because there are different types of ganache for different purposes. As long as the mixture is an emulsion between chocolate and cream, you're going to have ganache for a sauce-like filling. ganache for frosting onto cakes, ganache for piping, and of course, ganache for molding, sculpting, ganache for making truffles, as in chocolate truffles, and ganache for covering cakes. There are different forms of ganache on the market. The only difference here is the amount of chocolate to cream and the consistency it derives and the purposes they are used for. So if you do jump onto this tutorial, bear in mind, if you have some other ideas of ganache from anywhere else, we are simply talking white chocolate ganache the way I derive it for covering cakes. Now, at the core of the chocolate to cream are additional ingredients such as butter, corn syrup, gelatin, and a few other ingredients that may enhance texture, mouthfeel, and consistency. One is not better than the other. Purpose and consistency defines what ingredients go in. Another additional ingredients that I use here is a bit of salt. So simply for my white chocolate ganache, you have chocolate, cream, salt, and corn syrup. These are the core of the ingredients I use for white chocolate ganache. Jacqueline, there's Jacqueline Smith. Hello, Jacqueline. How are you? So, back on the subject of the ganache. In previous tutorials, I covered how to make my white chocolate in 2 ways. So go check those videos out, and then when you come back to these ratios, you will have a deeper understanding of why I made the choices I made in those tutorials. That said, the ratio of ganache, depending on what your purpose is, will vary. It is generally recommended that the ratio of 3:1 is firm and steady enough for the covering of your cake. Now, the subject of ratio is a subject that is centered in mathematics, okay? I am a home baker. I love to bake. I know nothing about maths. So I am not even going to attempt to delve into the subject of maths here. But to make it very understandable to you, ratios and proportions are generally a relationship between amounts. I don't know what that means. Please go find Google, okay? I had to go back in my research material. I had to go back to thinking about what factors are, small factors, and I was like, oh God. Once upon a time, I was a student. And I had a B in maths. The closest to maths that I can get in my kitchen is when I get a scale and a calculator and I write stuff down, and if I can't figure it out, I just Google schmoogle stuff, okay? So if you're in there and you can break down what ratios are, we would be grateful. But on the subject of ratios, which is simply a relationship between amounts, on that principle, a ratio of 4:1 is the relationship between the 4 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream, and similar for 3 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream, 2 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream, and 1 part of chocolate to 1 part of cream. Okay? Right, let's see. Tapeta. So Tapeta, I'm in good company. Tapeta said I got a U in maths, which is unsatisfactory. So I'm better at maths now, but it's still not my friend either. I mean, I'm a home baker, okay? I am not a maths teacher. This is the part where I need some mathematician over here, but I'm sure if I invited a mathematician here and they started talking maths and algebra, you all go to sleep, okay? So, no. So, let's stick with the story of, if you're just joining us, I told the story of a fairy who magically presented a baker who yearned for something strong and steady for covering her cakes. And the fairy landed in the kitchen with 4 bowls, and the 4 bowls contained 4 different substances labeled differently. There was soft, there was medium firm, there was firm, and there was strongly firm. The baker went through all of them only to find out that whilst they all worked in different ways, they were useful up until a certain point, and each one, even though she eventually found out that strong, firm, and strongly firm worked for her, they also came with some downsides. Ultimately, she found out that ganache works for different reasons at different times, but ganache for covering cakes exists on a particular spectrum, which is a ratio of 3:1 or a ratio of 4:1. So on that note, we are discussing the subject of ganache ratios, how they affect your consistency, the purposes for which you will derive what for what, and ultimately bring you some understanding on why the ratio of 3:1 is generally recommended for making ganache for covering cakes, right? That said, I have initially also reiterated that the subject of ganache covers also milk chocolate and dark chocolate. And whilst we are not talking about dark and milk chocolate here, if I ever come to covering those subjects, the same or similar principles will apply, except perhaps for the ratios. But for most part, the methods and processes will remain the same. So let's talk about the ratio of 1:1. The ratio of 1:1 simply means that for 1 part of chocolate, you will need exactly the same amount of cream in weight. Okay, so over here I have 100 grams of chocolate. The packet is 100 grams, and so I have exactly 100 mils in cream over here. Now I'm going to move that aside, and we're going to be covering each one. And what I am aiming to do is, after covering each one, we will create the sauce, we'll create the ganache, follow the same principles like we did before, and then we'll come back and observe them 24 hours later. If you don't know why I'm doing the 24 hours thing, I make my ganache for 24 hours, leave it completely to set, come back 10 to 12 hours later. Generally, depending on need and purposes, I will come back maybe 24 hours later. The truth is, ganache can be made in advance, stored for a very long time, refrigerated, frozen, and you'll be good to go when you need it. And on that note, we are on the subject of the 1:1 ratio. On the subject of 1:1 ratio, as previously noted, you'll need, for 1 part of chocolate, you need the same or equal amount of cream. So we have 100 grams of chocolate to 100 mils of cream. Now, based on the story I told you earlier, it won't be too hard to determine that the mixture of 100 grams of chocolate to 100 mils of cream will yield you the softest consistency, almost lending to the runny consistency part. This is useful for either sauce-like spreading, frosting onto cakes, and also using as drips, depending on what consistency you prefer it for. But most likely, the consistency of a 1:1 ratio is unlikely to yield you a firm hold for covering your cakes. And on that note, that is 1 part of the ganache ratio that may yield useful for different purposes, but definitely not helpful for covering cakes. Because if you want to cover a cake, you want something that is firm, holds strong, and is able to sustain in terms of enhancing structure and stability of your cake. So that is the 1:1 ratio. I will come back to mixing this together. Now we'll move on to the 2:1 ratio. The 2:1 ratio seems like for any 2 parts of chocolate, you have 1 part of cream. So we are keeping the same 100 mils of cream that 1:1 requires, but we have doubled the amount of chocolate here. So for 200 grams of chocolate, we have 100 mils of cream here. Now, what I didn't say in my other 2 tutorials is that you could possibly cover a cake in a 2:1 ratio, but it won't guarantee the firmness when the weather is very warm. The advantage is that I live in England, and we only have 3 days of sunny weather in the summer, that we call it. But notwithstanding that, in the chill of the autumn, spring, and winter seasons, you can actually go ahead and make your ganache a 2-to-1 ratio, and it will hold steady. Now, does it guarantee the same amount of firmness as a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1? Definitely not. But if you're a risk taker, that's a chance to take. If you're not into taking risk, purposely stay away from a 2-to-1 ratio, because whilst it will hold in the chills moments, once the temperature begins to rise, it will give away, and it will not guarantee the stability of your cake long term. So that is notable to say. In the story, it is represented as medium firm, which is that it is firm, but just about somewhere between the soft and firm, right? So that's the purpose of the 2-to-1. It is not just limited to covering cakes. It can also be used in piping, depending on how the consistency and how you whip it. It can be used for piping because as it firms up, it can hold a few details. It definitely can't make a consistent drippy ganache for you to drip on your cakes, but it will hold. It can also be used in covering cakes, as noted, and also piping details. So whilst it may not stretch as much as a runny consistency, it does play a part in the decorating process for sure. Now, with that away, we come to 3 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream. Of course, the recommended ganache ratio is 3 parts to 1 part of cream. If you want to know about the cream, also check the other videos that I have covered, the role cream plays. We'll touch on it later a little bit in this tutorial. But 3 parts of chocolate, you are guaranteed some sort of firm structure, and your cake will sustain. The reason being, for the amount of fat you have in your cream here, combined with the increasing amount of cocoa butter. Remember, white chocolate does not have cocoa solids, but it has cocoa butter. So depending on the quality of cocoa butter and the rising amount of chocolate to cream, you can be guaranteed a firm, solid ganache that will hold on your cakes better. Now, it is generally the recommended ratio, but it will only guarantee up to a certain point. So over here, I have known bakers who have made adjustment to the 3-to-1 ratio. Instead of going for, say, a 2-to-1, they've gone for 3.5-to-1, which is 3.5. And at this note, 3.5 will be 350 grams. And by so doing, you split the 350 grams into 3, and 1 part will be the exact measurement in cream, as in the exact amount in cream. Like I told you, we're not here to work the maths out, but if you work it out as 1 part of something to 2 parts, a part, or 3, that should guarantee you the amount. We're sticking with the consistent theme of 3 here, just so that the division and the relationship between the ratios will remain. But it doesn't necessarily limit the amount that you need to use. So for instance, if I went down to 90 grams of chocolate, 90 grams, bear in mind we have 100 grams. If I somehow decided that I just needed a quantity of 90 grams of chocolate here, I would need about 30 mils of cream, because then in simplistic mathematical sense, it's like how many 30s can I find in 90? And there will be 3 30s, and one of those 30s will make the amount of cream. Look, I've already told you, we're not here for the maths, okay? So that's just saying to you, you know what, I'm trying to make this accessible and understandable for you, but I'm also not trying to do the maths of it today, okay? So on the ratio of 3-to-1, you have 3 parts of cream, 3 parts of we have 3 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream, and that should guarantee you solid, consistent ganache for covering your cakes. That is the sort of ganache I derive for covering my cakes in both part 1 and 2 of these tutorials. So do go check that out, and then have a full recipe, instruction notes, and everything you need for making your ganache. Now, when I said I have known bakers to make adjustment for the 3-to-1 and for the fact that 3-to-1 will cover your cake better than 2-to-1, but will only sustain to a certain amount of time and can only withstand a certain amount of heat. Certain bakers who probably don't want the risk move on quickly to a 4-to-1. And on that note, there is 4 parts of chocolate to 1 part of cream. Now, if you come to think about it, like simple maths, this will be firmer than the 3-to-1 for sure. But why is the 4-to-1 generally not spoken about or recommended? That is because the more chocolate you increase and keep the cream the same at the same amount or level, the harder it gets to work with. So whilst you may derive yourself a very strong and firm, consistent ganache to work on your cakes with, you might have problems with the decorating process because of how quickly it's set or how firm it's set. It may yield structure on your cakes. It may cause problems on the cakes in terms of how smooth your polishing may come to. And that is because of the slight imbalance of chocolate to cream here. In the previous videos, we've already discussed how the chocolate to cream has to balance rightfully in a consistency that will yield you your best result. And so I think when some wise person decided that they wanted to recommend a ganache ratio for covering cakes, they landed on 3-to-1. And for that, I am not even mad. Okay, 3-to-1 works better, yields the results. Now, don't go put that sort of 3-to-1 ratio under the heat at 28 to 30 degrees and hoping that a miracle will happen. No miracle will happen. The cocoa butter will give way, the fats will break, you will have a sloppy mess of a cake, but that will be probably 3 to 4 hours later. Better than buttercream will hold in that amount of time. So as much as I preach the use of ganache to guarantee stability in your cakes, ganache is definitely not your savior in all day situations and weather conditions. Bear that in mind. So 4-to-1 would yield well for covering cakes, but it's also good for making truffles, for modeling, for structured cakes that require carving. Because sometimes when you have to carve a cake, you need steady form. And so for that, sometimes the 4-to-1 will guarantee those results better. All that I have said concerning the ganache ratios and the types of ganache you yield goes to confirm that each ganache may yield for a different purpose for which it is derived for. I think as I'm talking to you, I have to bear in mind because I am waiting for a delivery. So if you hear me distracted or a bang on my door, I'll be gone in a moment. Lollipop is back in the chat. Lollipop, my love, how are you? Oh, I've got a big box. I've got a big box. Okay, let me go get my... Hello. Thank you. People, at the end of the tutorial, we'll have an unprecedented unboxing. There you go. There you go. We have that is a box that is taller than me. Can you see? Okay. What is the best brand of chocolate to use? Jack, I'll talk to you in a moment. Okay, my love. Hi, Jackie. We have Auntie Jackie already in our house, or we have our Auntie Jackie here. So Jacqueline, if you intend to stay, we'll call you Jack. Would you like that? I think I like giving people pet names. I know some people hate that. So if you will permit me, we'll call you Jack, okay? And actually, I don't know. I like, say, I used to have a friend who is called Georgina, and I like to call her George. It was just sweet. That's all. But, yeah. We'll be unboxing. But if you don't like the suggestion at all, it's fine. Just let us know. Do you want a key, sir?
I've got one.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big box. I don't know why you think your name sounds weird. Obviously, I'm not going to shout it over here, but that's not true. People, look, the skin is glowing. Is it? I am getting a bit vain. Jacqueline is asking, sir, watch it. Watch it. Right. Thank you. Hi. Right. Yeah. Lollipop, you thinking your family, your family, are they your ops?
Did you just say ops?
Yeah.
Gladys, you're a grown woman.
Sorry?
Gladys saying, oh. You're a grown woman. You should not be saying ops.
Oh, please stop it. You don't get to decide what word choice I use, okay?
What does your chat say?
Well, I think Lollipop is like Laura with a funny emoji. Anyway, people, let's take on the subject, because you know what we are like. The moment we start discussing cakes and the moment we get distracted and start laughing, then everything goes out. Jack asked, what option of chocolate would I recommend? What is the best brand? Jack, look at me when I say, sorry to disappoint you, because I don't have a favorite brand, okay? I'll tell you why. I don't have a favorite brand, not because I don't want to recommend it. I think by far and by name, Caliber kind of trumps the rest. But I will tell you, over the time I have used Ganache, Fin Curry. It's a French brand. I used to call it Fin Car, as you can see. What's the name again, sir?
For Fin Carré.
Okay, did you hear the Frenchman? Say it loudly.
Closer to the microphone.
Yeah.
It's Fin Carré.
Okay. Okay. Right, people. I've been telling you the wrong name. Okay. Apparently, it's Fin Carré. Well, let's stick with the English name Fin Car. Okay. Let's anglicize the whole thing and make it Fin Car. Okay. Because apparently, I'm here going Fin Carré. He's like Fin Carré.
Fin Carré.
Fin Carré.
If you wanna, if you wanna anglicize it, you could say Fan Carré or something like that. Like,
okay, it's Fin Car.
No, that's just butchering it. That's not anglicizing it.
The chat is saying hello to you. Look on the screen. Look, turn around. Look on the screen.
Let me have a look.
Yeah, they're saying
That's
hi,
what I'm
big.
looking for.
Yeah, they say hi, big producer.
French word of the day. Yeah, Tabitha, that's your French word of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
here's another one for you. Au revoir, à tout à l'heure.
Au revoir, à tout à l'heure. He's the reason why I cannot speak French. He gets really precious. Okay, they're like bonjour. Bonjour. Oh, he's gone. Au revoir, à tout à l'heure. I don't know what he said over there. Nana Blue, darling, how are you? Anyway, people, we've had a laugh, and I said we are going to be doing an unboxing live, okay? Let's get on the subject of ganache. So now let's get onto the ganache. we've already spoken about the ganache ratios and the cream and everything else. So what we are going to do is mix the consistencies. I'm missing a chocolate. No, I'm not. Okay. How do we say hello in my native language? It depends. Because even as a Ghanaian, I speak 3 different Ghanaian languages. 3. Okay. The most common one you would hear most Ghanaians speak is Twi. It's one of, besides English, which is our formally spoken language, like English, the most commonly spoken Ghanaian language is Twi. It's related to the accounts. But there are different dialects. Don't forget that a language is one thing, and then you have the different dialects that fall under. But we're not getting into the subject of linguistics and languages over here. So I speak Twi, but I am not an Akan. I am Ghanaian from the country of Ghana, but I come from one part of Ghana that speaks a completely different language to the general population, or my native tongue as a Ghanaian, okay, from the north. Our language is different to the commonly spoken language. Does that make sense? Like, if I can explain it in English, in the English way, for instance, in the UK, we have Wales, we have Scotland, we have the Channel Isles, and then we have England, right? So all these countries come together to form the United Kingdom. But Wales people, as much as Wales is a country, Wales has its language called Welsh, but they do speak English. So on that principle, I come from the north, so I speak Frafra, right? But the commonly spoken language is Twi. So I speak Twi, I speak Frafra. And then I speak just a little bit of a variation of the Twi, which is Fanti. So if you ask me as a Ghanaian, what do we say like hello? Some of the words we don't speak in our native dialects. Okay, so I'm trying to think hello. I don't think we have hello as in the word hello, where I can directly translate for you. Does that make sense? But of course, we do have the acknowledging pleasantry, if you like, but not like an unexplainable or directly translatable hello. Does that make sense? You know, certain words that are not found in other language, like in Ghanaian language, we have the words in insult. We don't have swear words. Does that make sense? Lollipop, thank you. I doubt it's a talent. It's like when you grow up amongst people and they speak a language, you just get along with it, isn't it? So, I mean, speaking English is because I went to school. If you're literate, English is like formally taught in schools. But the other languages even though my native dialect is Frafra, I grew up in the South where Twi was commonly spoken. So amongst the community I grew up, there was the Twi and the different sort of languages. But Twi is commonly spoken, so it's just natural that I speak Twi. But at home, it's a bit like when, say, the same principle applies for, say, if someone is from Puerto Rico, they move to America, and then even though they are Americanized, their parents are like, you have to speak Puerto Rico at home. So even though I grew up in the South where Twi was commonly spoken, in my home environment, my dad spoke Frafra to me, which is why I know how to speak it. But I don't know if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, in my native Ghanaian language, we don't have swear words as in FU and AF. We don't have that. Like, but we do have insults. Like, African people will insult you elegantly. It's as elegant but proverbial as an Englishman giving you the read, but you like, our insult will be like something in the variation of, oh, wisdom is pursuing you, but you're too fast. Like, that is just calling you a fool without saying you're a fool. Okay, so anyway, on to this. So in my language, it's normally say, like, not my language. In the Tree language, you would hear most Ghanaians go say, and say is like, how are you? So we don't go hello. We go say, as in an acknowledgement of, oh, how are you? Do you see what I'm saying? So yeah. So yeah, we do have insults, like we have in, like, the wisdom is chasing you is like if you are being read by an elderly person who doesn't want to use the direct words but wants to leave the insult in translation. That's different. But we do have, like, we have the word a fool in Ghanaian, in Tree language, which is yeah. We have the word, as in the translated word a fool. We have that. We have stupid. We do. But we don't have F words and the variations of swear. Do you see what I'm saying? So I only had to learn that there were swear words, as in P take, F you, and like I had no context for what that looked or meant. You are either a fool, you're stupid, you're silly, you are this or that, or you are being read in translation. Whilst we're on that subject, let's not deviate from the fact that, 1 second. Frank Rice, hello there. Okay, so in summary, let's go back to the ratios of 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and 4 to 1. 1 to 1 will derive you a pourable, less than stable consistency that is preferred for sauces, might probably be whipped for filling into cakes, or sometimes used as drips on a cake. Those are some of the limited ways that 1 to 1 ratios can be used. Now, 2 to 1 ratio is slightly firm, and so it can fill into cakes, can yield some softly molded truffles, and can also be used for covering cakes. 3 to 1 is mostly recommended for covering cakes, but can do some of the things that the 2 to 1 will do, which is it can create truffles, but above all, it guarantees a certain level of stability and firmness on your cake. 4 to 1 is definitely the bee's knees, which does the holding, sculpting, modeling, can create truffles, and guarantees intense structure and firmness for your cake. The downside, though, is that because of the amount of chocolate required in the 4 to 1 ratio, it is likely to yield you some inconsistencies and create textures on your cake. Doesn't always guarantee you a polished look, so you'll probably have to have an advanced skill to be able to yield the best result for using the 4 to 1. My most recommended ratio, 3 to 1, or at least 3.5 to 1. And that is the summary of the ratios over here. If you're just joining us, you can go back and I tell a story of the 4:1, 1:1 and their uses so that it can make it explainable, relatable, and fairly understandable for you. On that note, we're going to move this to the side, and then we're going to mix the ganache ratios, creating ganache for each ratio. We'll leave it to set following the same principles of our first two tutorials, and then 24 hours later, normally I don't make videos on Saturdays, but I will come back and then we'll try the ratios out. We will see exactly what the 1:1 looks like, 2:1 looks like, 3:1 looks like, and 4:1. So let me move that to the side. That happened, okay? That happened. But it's not the worst thing to happen in the world. We'll clean it out and then we'll do a retake of this. Okay? This is why I love the lives. You get to see the mess happening and the results alongside. There you go. Okay, there you go. Right, what I might just do is weigh this over again. I'll have to. Anyway, let's start. Let's start on the ratio of 1:1. Even for the purposes of the demonstration, I have different bowls for the different ones. We have 1:1, 2:1, 3:1, and 4:1. Okay, we have different bowls for the demonstration so that tomorrow when we come back, there is no confusion over what is what. So the largest bowl is for 4:1. The next, and that goes and that goes. So we're starting with the 1:1 ratio, which is 1 part of cream to exactly the same amount of chocolate. So there is 100 grams of chocolate here. I'm going to get my, there you go, there. And on that note, we are pouring our ganache into this. Now, depending on your quantity, you will have to make adjustments for the time, okay? In our tutorials, we warmed the ganache up for 4 minutes. And that's because we had 900 grams of chocolate to cream to 300 mils of cream. If we did this for 4 minutes, it will melt. So we are going to put it in, observe until it melts and comes together. Don't forget, for the consistency here, we do not have corn syrup yet. Now we can add the corn syrup just so that we can have same results. So actually, I'm going to put a pinch of salt in here. The salt amount doesn't really do anything. And I need about 25 mils of corn syrup. Okay, so let's do that. I've got the corn syrup over here. We need about 25 mils for this. No, actually, we don't. Let's Google schmuggle that. I've told you, I am no mathematician. So, I told you. I only need about 13 mils. At least I figured that out real quick. Okay. I told you. Right. We need about 13, which is about 2 tablespoonfuls, if you like, or 3. Okay, there you go. Got it. Salt. So the same ganache recipes we have used in the other video is exactly what we have. We've just scaled it to the 1:1. So there's about 13 mils of cream. No, there's about 13 mils of corn syrup to a pinch of salt, 100 grams of chocolate to 100 mils of cream. Now let's put that in the microwave and wait for it to warm up. Let's look at the time. I'll put it in for a minute. It's 10 past 3 here, so let's wait for a minute. Okay, 1 minute in, just a minute, and there you go. I don't think we needed the full 1 minute, but as you can see, okay. It is, the consistency appears no different as it appears warm. It appears no different to the ganache we made, but I think the difference will tell when it's left to cool. You know what, I should have used a bigger bowl, but you see, I was determined to kind of follow through with this experiment, so I wanted this particular bowl. Can see a little. Okay, so this is the 1:1 ratio. It's looking very loose, which is why you can use it for a glaze, sauce, and a drip. Because this will be the consistency you probably need for your drip cake. And I mean the drip for your cake. Okay? Let me taste it and see what it tastes like. If I'm being honest, I was a little bit too handy with the salt. So it's a bit salty, which means the overly sickly sweetness is kind of subsided a bit. But yeah, that's the 1:1 ratio of ganache. But as always, I don't use my ganache on the same day it's made. So this is your 1:1 ratio of ganache. Okay, what would you use this for? Okay, right, that's 1:1 done now. Okay, let's get to 2:1. There you go. That was for a minute and it's already like Okay. Now we're going for 2-to-1. Cream goes in. We'll need 26 mils of corn syrup now. Okay, now we're doing the 2-to-1. Frankie, as a mono bear now take chat no more business. Met me a trophy ni a day Friday yam. I grew up in Ghana, right? I will make you trophy and fried fish and even add shito to it. Now check that. Anyway, that is just by the way. Let's add a pinch of salt. Glad, don't get handsy. Just a pinch. And then this goes back in. I think this time I'm actually going to do the right thing and set an alarm. I have a stopwatch for, no, a timer. Okay, 1 minute. And it starts now. Okay, it's actually 55 seconds because the countdown started before I knew it. So, right. So, let's see how that goes. And whilst that is happening, remember I told you not to be distracted, but now we're doing the 3-to-1. I mean, we've done the 3-to-1 already, haven't we? Which is in the 2 tutorial. But I'm only attempting to do it here just for the purposes of this tutorial. Okay. Okay, 1 minute in. Okay, we have that. A minute. It's not exactly a minute, it's 55 seconds. And this is the 2-to-1 ratio, right? Okay, at 55 minutes, you can tell that the consistency between the 2-to-1 and 1-to-1 is even slightly obvious. But here, there you go. This is your 2-to-1 ratio. 1 second. The 2-to-1 ratio. There you go. Right? Now, you see why I say this can be used to cover a cake if it's left to set, but it won't hold firm. It will also form some soft truffles. It can be used for piping. depending on how you whip it and the other ingredients, because whipping it can also cause it to break. But the additional ingredient here is the corn syrup that will enhance the emulsion. So here is the 2-to-1 ratio. We are looking at 55 seconds. So ideally, the warming time for the quantities is anytime between 40 seconds to a minute. And the more chocolate you add, the more time you will need. But be very careful. So you know what, don't be like me. Remember, I'm just doing this for demonstration, just to show you the consistency. But heat does impact on your ganache quality eventually and texture. At 45 seconds, it's not the worst that would happen. But even the 1-to-1 ratio, if it had gone any over a minute, we would have issues. But here you have it. There you go. The consistency is a little more runny. You can even tell. I'm not sure you can tell, right, very much on here. But even in trying to kind of stir it, you can tell in the consistencies. Look, this flows easily and has a stretch to it. This just like thin, right? So 1-to-1, 2-to-1 over there. Now let's move on to 3-to-1. Let's wipe this over. Right, the 3-to-1 ratio, we have 300. Second. Yeah, we have 300 grams of chocolate here. I just want to make sure I got my chocolate right. You know, sometimes when you measure, you weigh something, you're not sure. So, yeah, 300 grams of chocolate to 100 mils of cream. Let's work out how much we need for corn syrup, okay? Okay. Another third. Oh God, another 30 mils, because then the okay. Okay, we got the 30 mils. A pinch of salt. There you go. There you go. Now let's reset the time. Okay, turning that over. Start now. Okay, I set it to a minute, but it's a stopped. So we'll check it at 30 seconds just to be sure. We don't want to ruin this. Okay, 29. Okay, at 30 seconds, let's have a look. Nothing is happening, but as you can see, The microwave settings have remained stable anyway, so not much has changed. Okay, remember I took it out at 30 seconds, so let's go back for another 30 seconds. Let's see. Yep, another 30 seconds and it starts now. Right, whilst we're at it, let me just, because the cream tipped. Oh, okay. That went for 40 seconds instead of 30. So a total of 1 minute and 10 seconds. And there we have it. I mean, we know what consistency this will be because we have already derived this ganache in tutorial 1 and 2. But see, the more chocolate we increased, the more time it needed to melt and the steadier it looked. Look, this is 3-to-1. Look, it's all melted in now. And that's a ratio of 3-to-1. This should be great for covering your cakes and making things much easier. There you go. However, at this stage, even if it covers your cake, it can only cover and settle up to a certain point, which is why some people opt for the 4-to-1. I should say though that the 4-to-1 is a little bit on the extreme side. Okay, 3-to-1, 3.5 should be just about the adequate amount you need. But there you go. Look at the consistency. So 3-to-1 goes. Now let's go do 4-to-1 now, which is back in here. We'll add the 13 mils of cornstarch. Is it corn syrup? Why do I keep saying cornstarch? Okay. Cream. And chocolate. There you go. Right, now that is 4-to-1. Ratio is 4-to-1. Goes in the microwave. Let's set our alarm. That's a whole minute now. Okay, that is your full minute. Full minutes. We didn't have to break this up. We still have lumpy bits in here. Look, it is so tight. The 4-to-1 is so tight. It's almost like, okay, we still have lumpy bits in there. So we are going to put that back in the thingy and set it for 10 to 12 seconds. We'll see. Okay. That's 5 seconds. We'll pause that. Okay. And you can tell at this consistency, I have to work my hands to be able to get the right amount. As you can see, that's your 4-to-1. Okay. So did we miss salt? Let's see. Let me just be sure. Did I? Now I'm a bit confused. You know what? The salt makes for the taste, not for the consistency we are trying to kind of derive. So I've just added a little bit here. Can you see the amount of tension I need to kind of get this right? There you go. There you go. So look, even before we finish the thing, it's setting. Can you see? This will be great for guaranteeing some coverage on your cake. But look at how intense it is. Anyway, so that's 4-to-1. This is your 4-to-1 ratio. Now, let's bring our ganaches back. We have the 3-to-1, 2-to-1, and 1-to-1. Now, let's look at it from a consistency point of view. I'll look at this friend over here. After melting all of these, right? Look. This friend here is... This looks ready for work. The 3-to-1 looks like... It's like, let me rest up a little bit. Okay? The 2-to-1 is like, you know what? Just leave me be. Okay, just leave me for now. And the 1-to-1 is like, really? Okay. But you see, one is not better than the other, and one is not like a worse thing. It all depends on what you want to use it for. So if I wanted to make a drip cake and I wanted this to drip on my cake, of course 1-to-1 may do. If I didn't want to splurge on my ganache and it's a cold day in England and I want to get away with saving some money whilst not worrying about the sun, 2-to-1 might just do. If I'm not a risk taker and I just want to play safe, 3-to-1 will do. But of course, if I just want to go for the bee's knees and the absolute guarantee for my cakes with a bit of skill and ability, then 4-to-1. So there you have it. But you see, we're not done yet, because you get to see what ganache looks like when it all sets after a while. So we'll come back 24 hours later, which is what I normally do with my ganache for covering cakes. And then we can kind of judge these better. Okay? Creative Learning is asking, can't you use ganache right away on your cakes? It all depends. Right away, what do you mean by right away? Of course, for how much it looks like that we've derived, you can't use it right away because it's still warm. It's not going to work on your cakes. But you can find ways to work with ganache after it's been made same day, which is that you can keep it refrigerated so that it can cool and set. And then you whip it or reformulate it by heating it and then using it. There is no specific instruction that stops you from making and using ganache on the same day. I did explain in tutorial 1 and 2, which is how I derive my ganache, even with different ingredients, same process. I did explain that the reason why I leave my ganache for 24 hours is out of habit and out of practice. And it is the same thing that has guaranteed me my best and most consistent result. Because the problem is when you have to chill it, you have to keep an eye on it because otherwise everything sets firm. And then you have to reformulate it. And if you do warm it up too much, it will break. And then you have to chill it. So you end up in this loop of chilling and heating, which kind of affects the texture. You can also leave it at room temperature for a couple of hours and use it the same day. I have never had a need for doing that. And out of habit, since I discovered ganache, I have always made it at least 24 to 12 hours earlier so that I can use it later. If anything, I would make my ganache the night before for use next day in the afternoon or evening, which is what has guaranteed my most consistent and best yielding result for cake decorating. So the process you're learning in this tutorial is not specifically defined by anybody except from my own experience. And I hope that kind of makes sense. So you can use ganache on the same day it has been made for sure. But you want to make sure that depending on what you're using it for, if you're using it for cake decorating, you want to make sure that the cake, the ganache is cool for when you use it. If you're using it for drips, you don't necessarily have to cool it. It has to be warm to the touch because when it cools, it will set and then it won't drip. So a long-winded way of answering the question, it all depends on what you're using your ganache for. But advisably, I have a lot more control and my best result is guaranteed when I leave it at room temperature because then I don't have the trouble of having to keep an eye on it. I don't have a need for it. I just leave it and it sets on its own and then I come back to reformulating it. If you want to understand that better, check tutorial 1 and tutorial 2. They are all in a playlist now. But they are up on the channel. They are my most recent ganache videos, how I make ganache using fresh cream and Emily. And then the second video is how I make ganache using double cream and Aldi brand of white chocolate. Today I'm using the Fin Curry brand, that French brand. That French brand has confused me, but that is neither here nor there. So that is just by the way. Of course, for those of you who do not have access to the kind of cream that I use, well, check your labeling because the best result for the ganache we have over here is a ratio of what is the cream that is labeled double cream or fresh cream. It has a fat amount of about 48%, which is what I am using. Different places have different labeling. As long as your labeling says your cream is over 35%, anywhere between 35 to 40% should work for you. Anywhere lower than that 35 is probably going to yield you slight problems, but you can also adjust that by increasing your amount of chocolate. What I am showing you on this tutorial is exclusively what I use and how I use it. I hope that I hope that kind of like gives you some sort of clarity. People, I will talk to you, but I keep having a missed call on my phone. It's important. I'm going to step away. Just stay here with me. I'll be back shortly. Please bear with me. Right. You have questions for me, my people. Thank you. Right. Thank you for that. Sorry. You know what? I had a really important call that I kept missing. So thank you for your patience with me. And B in the chat says, I love how you speak. Your diction and cadence is lovely. Thank you, B. Great to have you here. And thanks for the compliment. I know we've been stuck in tutorial mode and I've been yapping about Ganache. So our friend Creative Learning is asking, what do you do 24 hours after Ganache is made? You know what? I will tell you, but you're better off being shown how. So I'll talk you through it. But the good news is that we have already created a tutorial on a live. Okay? This Ganache tutorial is everything. It's the sort of class you will pay for. Okay, but I choose to bring it to you on YouTube for free because you know what? YouTube cuts away the job of having to sit down and put this on paper for you and sell it to you, and yet you have so much questions that I may not be available to answer. Okay, so the good news is that we are discussing the different subjects concerning Ganache. So how to make it, how to use it. Today, if you just join in the session midway, we're discussing the ratios of Ganache, for which I have gone all the way to create. Not that I don't know the solution for this, but this is for your learning purposes. So we already have 2 tutorials on a live where I made the Ganache, and then we came back 24 hours later to reformulate and use it. So check that live up. It's already up on the channel, on the live library. But what I've also done is I've broken those tutorials up in long form formats so that if you are unable to enjoy the live experience and you want to cut to the chase, you can kind of see those videos. So those also are tutorials on the channel in long form. But if you don't want to miss any detail, check the live app because I taught it as a live. And then I clipped the videos into different formats. So check it out. But I'll tell you, essentially when it gets set, you come back, it's completely set at room temperature, especially if you're using the ratio of 3:1 or 4:1. And then you look, if I tell you I will miss some detail like the timing, go check it out. It's on the live. If it doesn't have a title, it does. It does have a title. It will be what you do with Ganache 24 hours after it's been made or something. On the live library, go check that out. Okay? That is just by the way. So this is just for just teaching purposes. We have 4:1, 3:1, 2:1, and 1:1. We need all of these to set. And then 24 hours later, we'll see what they look like. Lollipop says, oh, I always appreciate your help. And you're making a donation out here. People, give it up for Lollipop. Lollipop, lovely. Thank you for your amazing donation. Look, thank you, people. Thank you. You know what? This will just go back straight back to buying chocolate, okay? Because this chocolate I'm using here ain't cheap. But you see, the only reason it's not going to waste, by the way. This will be added together to make ganache for covering cake. So I'm not complaining, okay? All I'm saying is I appreciate every little thing you give me over here. Look, I don't ask anything of you. I love you being here with me, supporting what we do. That is enough. Your attention is currency, okay? Your attention, your time to sit here with me and watch me yap about a cake is important. It is the best thing you can do for me. But if you do decide to dip any deeper into your pockets to make a donation or support the channel in any way, look, thank you. That's all. Okay, so that's the ganache ratios all done. Left to the side. Left to the side. Now, shall we do the unboxing? Shall we? If you have any more questions about ganache, please. If you have any more questions about ganache, please let me know. Have I missed any more questions? Look, because I was yapping, whatever questions you have asked me, let's see. Okay, we're doing the unboxing. By the way, one final thing. We were talking about the cream. You know what? I don't want to ruin this, but I might just come back and do a mixture of chocolate to cream using a different type of cream, and then we'll see. How is that? So we've done the ratios for one. Yeah, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see. Now, let's unbox some things. Let's unbox. I went cake shopping, okay? I said I went cake shopping. I didn't go cake shopping. I went cake material shopping, okay? Okay. What do you think you will find in my cake box? Hey! The box is larger than me. It is. Look. It is so big. I don't know what to do, okay? Okay. Let me find a knife. You are seeing... You are seeing a live unboxing because this box was delivered right here. Okay, this box was delivered right here when I stood here, went out and got it. So let me get a knife. I do not know. I know I bought something. I do not know what's in it. So let's find out together. I bought them from Cake Craft Company. Okay. And by the way, if you're watching this tutorial, here is your disclaimer. It's not sponsored. Okay? I paid money for this stuff here. I will show you the receipt, but it's got my address on it, so I'm not doing it, okay? But I paid money. I didn't even get a discount, not a discount code, all right? Did I tell you November is going to be a very busy month? You can't think of what could be in there that is so big. Well, for me, I love these. You know why? Because as I'm packing my home, this paper will come easy for wrapping my fragile stuff. Okay, so yeah, there you go. First of all, let's have a look at what's in here. Okay, I have cake drums. These are 9-inch cake drums. 9-inch cake drums. Okay, this I'm going to be using for, say, as a display board for my small cake. So say my 6-inch cakes end up on a 9-inch because I want a 3-inch space between the cake and the board. So these are 9-inch cake drums. And then we have, I think we have matching. Oh, these are 10-inch. These are 10-inch boxes. Okay, we'll see. You know what? This is what has made it so long. This box, okay, this box right here, it's a 22-inch Look at how long it is. It's a 22-inch. You know when the cake is stacked and you want to box it, sometimes it can be difficult to box it. So if you get a sturdy box, that does the job, which is what this is for. Yeah, there you go. So I will have to build it up though. I'll have to build it up. So I'm gonna, okay, no, that won't work. And then I have a 14-inch MDF board. This is going to be stacking a 3-tier gravity defying cake. I'll be making parts of those videos on this channel, so you'll see, right? So that's a 14-inch. I made my way to the other side, people. I made my way to the other side. I normally like, I prefer, what do you call it? Fondant covered boards. But I'm sick of running to the shop last minute for fondant. Okay, I'm sick of it. So I made the switch. These are the matte white slim cake boards. Okay, there you are. They are for cake display purposes. And then for the gravity defying cake, I got myself some sturdy poly dowels. Okay, these are sturdy ones. Look. I buy some sturdy ones on Amazon, but these are going to be helpful for the 3-tier cake. So these are some dowels. Ha! My favorite thing. Now this. Ha! This. Do you know what this is? This is white coloring. This is what I need for my ganache. And the cake I'm going to be making is a white cake. So I need this. I'm excited. There you go. Have you ever seen a cake maker excited? People, we are doing an unboxing. Okay? You know what? I can't even tell you exactly what I have. Is this what unboxings look like? Anyway, I am keeping this for my house move. You know the problem I am having mentally as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, if these things don't end up the way I think they would be, I would be mad. Anyway, these are 8-inch cake MDF. MDF premium. Why did is this not premium then? Yeah, this is premium. Okay, this is premium MDF. It's got feet. Okay, I'm a little bit confused over here. Look. There is the slim white. And the rest is cake boxes. We have more cake boxes, my dear. Look. I don't know. There you go. Some more slim. Okay, let's look at the receipts. The receipt doesn't even, it doesn't have everything. Anyway. Look, there's nothing exciting about cake purchases, and this is only half of what I need. We haven't even done the butter shopping and the shopping for the rest of the things we need. We haven't done that yet, and yet we are still here. Anyway, I will be bringing you along all of that anyway, so don't you worry. Yeah, this is the slim white. I don't know how I feel about this, because imagine if you put a heavy 8-inch cake over this. Let me take a call. Yeah, please, people, bear with me. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Mrs. O? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Please, please do. You know, I sincerely appreciate that and thank you. I hope you never feel too tired of doing that, and never, honestly, and don't feel as if it's bothersome to me. I think it's important that someone outside of me gets to experience what is happening, because he left for you at exactly 5 to 3. I can tell you because I'm on a live tutorial. So he left. It's 5 to 3 is, as we discussed before, 5 to 3 is really early. When I'm picking you up, I leave here at the quarter past and it's 10 minutes, right? But when he leaves at 5 to 3, I'm assuming he will have that probably to the golf course. Right, he is not parked up there. So whatever is happening, if you didn't tell me this, right, he'll come home and this part of the story will be gone. It's look, it's Friday, go home. I'll see you guys on Monday. Yeah? Thank you. Sincerely appreciate that. All right, I'll see you on Monday. That's a good, at least that's something to be happy about. So have a good one. Thank you so much, Mrs. So. All right, bye-bye. People, I've got stuff to do, but that's by the way. The slim cake boards and cake drums, we have spoken about them here before. Remember, we've covered the subject of cake boards and what they do in the cake decorating process. Remember? So if you want to creative learning, okay, because you know what, as much as I love being here and I don't take your attention for granted, if you've been here long enough with us, you'll find that this is my home kitchen, this is my life, okay? And yes, just as the postman delivered something, life happens. I have a family to take care of, I have things happening, so sometimes I block time out because this is also a job for me and I respect your time. But I hope you will have some consideration for the fact that I sincerely asked to step away, okay? And if you cannot understand that on a human level, I am sorry, I cannot help you. That's all. That said, we've spoken about cake cards and cake drums over here. That video is already up on the channel. I don't know if I'm fond of these ones. They are too slim. Imagine if you put a 12-inch cake on this, a 10-inch cake on this. I find, anyway, that might be a good reason to come back and tell you whether these are worth it or not. But either way, there's 10-inch, there is 8-inch. I did settle for some of mine. I did settle for my original cake drum. There is this and the poly dowels. Okay. And then we have For each drum, there is a matching box so that I can be able to box the cake, because the drums are for display purposes and the box comes as a box and cover. I don't always use the cover because I wrap my cakes when they are covered in cellophane. But there you go. I'm not going to bore you by trying to organize all of them in detail over here, but at least you can see what I shopped for, what a baker buys in her baking cart, which is lovely. I am so happy to share this with you. Okay, there you go, some poly dowels, and there we are. Besides that, there is just more boxes. Okay, so this is just a sneak peek into what I went shopping for cakes this November. There's quite a lot to do this November, and it's kind of throwing the spanner in my Christmas plans with you. But like I said, look, I will always make room to accommodate any developing changes that comes along. I love the support you give me, and I'm always here to give you my very best. So even though I am not normally here on a Saturday, I'll make an exception. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll discuss the consistencies after they have set, so that you can see that in its totality, which should round up the subject of ganache ratios and how they present. And then we'll clip this part. You will come to see what this looks like. And yeah, I'm looking forward to Christmas with you guys. What are you doing for Christmas, my people? Have you any plans for Christmas? Any plans for Christmas? Well, let's talk about Christmas plans tomorrow when we're back on the live, because tomorrow we'll just finish this ganache consistencies and then we'll catch up properly about everything Christmas and the plans we have. I am sure you're going to see me more this November than you've ever seen, but we're all prepping for Christmas. So just the four of us in the flat and lots of food and films. I mean, it will be me and my takeaway here for Christmas. And on that note, that's a takeaway. I'll see you on the next one, which will be tomorrow. Keep an eye on the community post for updates, and I'll see you soon. Take care.